there. I've got your monthly craft along, and this one's for August, and we're using Perfectly Pears. We're going to use the stamp and a couple of the dies. What we're going to do is we're going to paint on these pears. So I thought that would be a fun technique for this month. This is the card, and you open it up and it's got a little pop-up surprise inside. So that's what we're going to make today. The supply list is in my Facebook group, Scrappin' with Sandra. But what you're going to want to do with your supplies is make a white standard card base 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And when you're making card bases, you can either take an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper or 12 by 12 and cut it down to 8 1/2 by 11. And then you just simply cut it in half and score it at 4 1/4. So you cut it at 5 1/2 and score it at 4 1/4. So that'll make your standard card base. You need one in white and you need one in mossy meadow. The other pieces you'll need are these 2 pieces for your pop-up that you die cut. You could also fussy cut them if you really wanted to, but I love that you can die cut them. A lot easier. Looks more professional. You need 14 inches of ribbon, and I used kind of a sheer white ribbon. Let's see what this is called. It's Whisper White ribbon. It's from my stash. So, but any white ribbon will do. And a little strip of white that is 1/2 inch by 5 1/2 inches. So pretty simple on our supplies, but we're going to take some time to color these. We're going to use a paintbrush and some water, and I'm using a water brush and ink. That's how we're going to color them. So the first thing we're going to do, the other piece you're going to need is a piece of 4 1/2 or 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Just roughly, you need a sheet to work with to stamp your pears with a little bit of room. And we're also going to use some washi tape, and it can be like this is ugly washi tape. It doesn't matter. We're more using this as a mask, and I'll show you that right here. We're using it as a mask, and we're going to stamp over it. So what I want you to do is just take a piece that's about, let's see, 2 1/2 inches long, and just tear that off. And I like kind of the random tear, so it looks kind of ragtag and torn, because you want it, that's the look we're going for. I'm also going to stick it to my hand just once, just to take a little of the stick out of it. And I'm going to stick that on there, just like that. Just because sometimes when you pull it up after you've pressed on it with your stamps, it can be a little too sticky. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to take the large filled-in stamp of the pear, and I'm going to be using crushed curry, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp here. And I'm just going to stamp it right in the center with the washi tape toward the bottom. And then ink it up again. We do want these to kind of touch. The fattest part of the pear, we want to touch the other ones, but they can overlap. But you do want them to kind of touch there. It makes them a lot easier to cut out. It gives you a better look. And I kind of tilted mine a little bit, because I think if pears were sitting there, they wouldn't be exactly the same shape. So there we go with that. I'm going to leave that washi tape on there for now. Next, we're going to do the stems. And for the stems, we're going to paint these in. So I don't really want any, solid on this because we're going to have fun painting. So this inked up here. And I'm going to kind of do the stems in 2 different ways. I'm going to do one like that. Then I'm going to flip it over the other way. I'm going to try not to make them overlap too much. So let's see. There you go. So there's our pears. That just gives us a little bit of movement across the top instead of just stamping them all the same. So the next step, and I do want to show you this, I'm going to paint in the pears with water, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So there's a couple ways you can do this, and I want to show you also a trick about opening your stamp pads while we're at it. You have to do this several times. The new ones, it'll take a little bit, but I've used this one several times, so I just want to show you an easy way to get it open. See these 2 dots here? Put your thumbs on the other side of that and just press. So that makes it a lot easier for me. So I just wanted to give you that tip. So one way you can do it is like this. I just took it when it was closed and I squeezed it. And you can use it like that, which is one way to do it. And just pick it up like that. The other way you can do it is just to take it and you can ink it directly on your glass mat. Just put a little smear there and use that to paint. Or you can use an acrylic block and do the same thing on an acrylic block and use it as a spot there. I guess I'll just leave that there and use it. I'm just going to go ahead and just lightly fill this in. And it's not watercolor paper. I've got a little too much water there. So I'm going to get rid of some of the water. I want to pick up more color than water here. And you can have a sheer look. You can have a heavy look. It's up to you. So we're just having fun painting here. I'm going to do these leaves also. See how it can be kind of sheer. It depends on how much ink that you pick up. And I'm not using a ton of water because, like I said, this is not watercolor paper. I want more ink than water. And when we get done with this, we're also going to jazz up the pears a little bit. You could add as much or as little as you like. So if you like coloring, this might be something new that you want to try and add in because it is kind of fun. I have more fun painting like this than I do coloring, but it's a little less fuzzy. So that's what we're getting there. So I'm not squeezing this water brush at all. I don't really want, I just need it a little wet, but I don't want a lot of water. So you can pick up, like I said, as much or as little as you like. You can go back over it. If you want to go back over it a lot, I'd wait till it dries. Like you can go back over it a little bit, but Again, it's not watercolor paper, so you don't want to get it super wet. Anyway, that's how mine's looking so far. So next we're going to use some crushed curry, and we're going to paint our pears. That's the next step. I'm going to get rid of this off of my mat so I don't accidentally stick my card in there. All right. I'm just wiping off my tip here to get the ink off of it. And you know what these are? These are little like glasses cleaners, or sometimes you get them in the screen when you put the screen protector on your phone. And I just save them and use them as little cloths I could throw away later. They're washable also, which is great. So anyway, just another tip for you. So next we're going to do the pears, and I'm going to start with some Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to grab some with my brush, and I'm just going to go down the side a little bit and add a little shadow there. You can really add it anywhere you like. I'm going to do this one also. I'm going to keep it on the same side. And I'm not really an artist. I just pretend to be one. So if you have any artistic ability, you'll be able to do this better than me. But add some shadows there to your sides of your pears, or anywhere else that you'd like. You could even add it on the other side if you like. And I'm going to I'm going to wipe this off again, and I'm going to grab the Calypso Coral. I'm not sure if this is going to be too dark, so I'm just gonna add a little bit in there. Guess I want that more diluted. These will tone down a little bit as they sink into your paper. So there's mine, and I like it. So I'll set with that, and then we're going to also do our other pear. While we're at it, I should have probably done that. Stamped it while I had the ink out and everything, but better late than never. All right. So we'll grab our crushed curry again and our pear stamp. Mossy Meadow. If I can find it again. I'm just going to leave this open because I'm going to show you how to dip it in the lid. So we're going to ink this up. And I'm going to go ahead and do the pear first since I already have some ink on here. Get my pear dialed up here. There we go. All right, now our Mossy Meadow. I'm just gonna dip it in my lid here. So you can also use that for a palette. All right. So I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of glue. Just going to put a little dab there. And we'll let this dry while we do some other things here. All right. Get that cleaned up there. All right. So the next step here is to stamp our sentiment on. We're going to go ahead and take our washi tape off. There we go. Isn't that kind of a cool masking technique with just a little bit of washi tape? So we're going to take our sentiment here, which is a good friend is a gift, and we're going to stamp it right here with the Mossy Meadow. There we go. And then we're also going to stamp on our other pear. While we're at it, we have our ink open. And this one I took Hello and Friend and put it together. And I'm just going to stamp this one right on that pear for a little pop-up inside. So I'm going to take my paper snips and cut this out. Unfortunately, when we put those together, there's no die that would do that. So for this, we're going to have to fussy cut. And I'm just turning my paper as I go. This is all we used to have before die cuts. So consider yourself lucky. Back in the olden days, back in the 1900s, we had to cut these all out by hand. My goodness. All right, see how these leaves are kind of connected? I'm just going to cut right through there. Nobody will know. They'll never know. All right, when we stick it down, nobody will even be able to tell that I cut through there. Let's see. Because it'll go right back together like that. So nobody will know. And what I'll do is I'll be sure, I'm going to pop these up. I'll be sure to put my Stampin' Dimensional right in the center there to hold it together. So I'm just going to continue to cut in between these leaves here. And this is definitely fussy. All right. All right, I've got that cut out. We'll save that. And we've got a little bit of stamping to do for our strip here. So I've got my glass mat, but if you don't, you might want to get a piece of scrap paper because we're going to stamp off the edge of it. Get my little strip here. I see I already did this side, but I'm going to go ahead and stamp on the other side instead of wasting it. You're going to need all your stamp colors that we have here. We're going to start with the Mossy Meadow. And I'm just switching my stamp here. We're going to be using this floral cluster. And I'm just going to randomly stamp it. I'm going to turn it, randomly stamp. Keep turning my stamp. And then I'm going to use the yellow, the crushed curry, and the insides of the floral cluster. And this is a little tricky to see like where you need to put it since it's since you've turned it and it's on such a tiny piece, but just kind of turn it till it makes sense and you get the center of the flowers like that. So if there's two of them, turn it until you can get two of them together in the center or close to the center. I mean, nobody's really going to look at your tiny little strip very closely. And next, we're going to take our paintbrush and our Calypso Coral and just add a little bit to the leaves, not the leaves, the petals. That's it, the petals. We're just going to add a little bit. So it looks like that. And that, like I said, when you paint on the ink, it does tone down a little bit. So see it. Oh, that one's not painted. Let me show you this one. See how much lighter that is? It does sink into the paper a little bit. All right, so we have that done. We have some stamping to do on the inside of our card here, the white card. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the floral cluster again in the mossy meadow. We're just going to put one here. We're going to put one down here. And again with the inside of the flower cluster, we're going to use the crushed curry. It's much easier to line up when it's like this and not on a tiny strip. There we go. Show you what that looks like. And then we're going to just do the insides again with our brush. Just like that. All right. So we need to make our pop-up. And the way that we're going to do that is that we're going to measure the inside here. And this is 5.5. So about 2 3/4 is the center. We do need to, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch on each side of that and make a little mark. Do it down here a little bit. So it looks like 2.5 and 3. And then I'm going to put this across there, and I'm going to make about 1/2 inch of a line. I'm going to do 1/4 inch on this side, 1/4 inch on this side. I'm going to make it 1/2 inch. Okay. I'm going to measure that again because the most important thing is that it is even. All right. So there are my lines. I'm going to turn my card. I'm just going to use scissors. You can do this on the paper trimmer, but I just think it's easier to do scissors, and then you can get both lines exactly the same. There we go. Then I'm going to take my eraser. I'm just going to erase my pencil lines here. These won't show anyway because you're putting your pop-up on top. So there's our pop-up mechanism, and what we're going to do is just take our finger and push it in the center as we fold our card. So it's like this. It ends up to be like a little cube. And that's what we're going for on the inside. You do need one pop dot, just because you really want that to stick in there and not come out. So I'm going to take my pop dot. If you have a mini one, that would be even better, but I don't. Take it and make sure it gets exactly on your pop-up mechanism, just the part that pops out. So just right there. You don't want it anywhere else, or it could stick your card together or ruin the pop-up effect. So make sure it's all the way on there. And then just stick your pear on there. There we go. So there's our little pop-up. Now what we're going to do is fit this inside the other card. And what that does is that just covers this little slot that you have left over. So we're just going to glue this card right in the center. And because there's a little bit, because you're putting it in the center and there's a little bit of bulk, you might need to trim the edges a little bit with your paper trimmer when you get done, the white, if you have any excess. So that's what we're going to do. I'll let you do that later, but that does happen just because we're fitting it inside. And it's better to do it that way than to try to trim it down. You could trim it a quarter all the way around, but that gets tricky depending on how it fits inside. So my suggestion is just to trim it afterward. So I guess I can take this Post-it off. I'm going to just put some adhesive. I am going to stay away from this. Do not put any adhesive on there. We do not want to ruin our pop-up effect. So see how I have a little tiny bit here? I'll just trim that off with the paper trimmer. All right, now we can decorate the outside. And what we're going to do first is glue down our little strip here. And I'm going to put it about 1/2 inch from the bottom, which is the same width as the actual strip. Okay, next you need to find your ribbon. I'm going to tie it in a knot here. And then I'm going to tie a little bow. Okay, that's very fiddly as well, but there we go. And then we're going to add our Pears with the Stampin' Dimensionals. So I had those right there, and then I put my ink pads on top of it. That was not very good. All right. So that little spot right there where I cut that apart, I'm going to cut one of these in half. And that's the nice thing about these, you can cut them. And stick those back together. I'm going to use my tool to take the little paper backing off. Makes it a lot easier to at least get it started. My take your pick tool. If you do wear nail polish, it really does ruin your nails, picking these little strips off. I made a shadow box for my son for his new room on campus, and I used over 100 of those little dots, and man, let me tell you, that tool comes in handy. So we're going to stick this right here on the front. There you go. There's your card. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed making it. And I hope you try some new techniques like painting with your inks. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. And tune in next time. We're going to make a candy bowl. And we're going to do it out of 3 pieces of cardstock. So very exciting. So I'll have a picture of that in my Stampin' with Sandra Facebook group, and I'll see you next month. Bye.